So I had the honor of listening to Sue's celebration of life, going to the EFT Summit, and even getting to talk to her partner, John Douglas. And there's a nugget that I want to share with you all to talk about today in just a moment.
Welcome to the Leading Edge in Emotionally Focused Therapy with your hosts, Dr. James Hawkins and Dr. Ryan Rana. EFT is a dynamic model that humbles even the most seasoned therapists. Together, we want to come alongside you as you continually push the leading edge of your understanding and application of this wonderful model developed by Dr. Sue Johnson.
Yeah, today's a little bit different. I am currently on the road. I'm in a hotel here in Atlanta, Georgia, with the wonderful Atlanta EFT community. Ryan, of course, is not here. He is out for the moment, and Nicola's not in studio with me. We all just had a great time at the EFT Summit. I know normally we don't say things on the podcast that date the podcast, but I have to mention that the EFT Europe community did an amazing job. It was a great summit, and my first ever in-person trainers retreat, and it was great. And definitely a lot going on after the passing of Sue, and this being a major moment after Sue not being able to be there to really spearhead and be that focal point for a lot of things. So it was a lot of emotion, a lot of learning. I got to say thank you to all of you, the listeners of The Leading Edge, that I got to meet at the summit. Ryan and I do this as a labor of just really feeling compelled to be a part of helping therapists. What we do is in so much solitude. I'm thankful for the EFT community and the culture that's been established, that we are part of communities. And so Ryan and I, it just feels like through this medium of kind of like communication, being able to join you all. And we do it and we hear thank yous through social media and emails, but to get to see you all in person was amazing. And so we just want to say thank you. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of what you do. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for taking extra time to listen to something else, to once again grow and get better, to help the people that come into your offices. And we're just truly honored that you would even give 20 to 30 minutes of your time to listen to anything that we would have to say. And so we're grateful for that. All right. So it's me. So today, I think the nugget, I listened to Sue's celebration of life. I got to talk to her partner, John Douglas, and just at the summit. And there was this line that stuck out, and I can't remember where I've heard it now. I'm still suffering from jet lag, if you hear any lag in my voice. And it was that the line was this: the secret of Sue's brilliance was her ability to empathize with her clients. And as Ryan and I talked about that nugget and how it stuck out to me, it wasn't that Sue never got frustrated. It wasn't that at times, Sue wasn't rubbed in a way by her clients' responses. Getting to talk to Sue one time, she talked about a particular case where the husband was just coming across in a certain way towards his female partner that was just really rubbing Sue. But Sue was able to still find this ability to empathize with him and to try to understand how he arrived at that place and why he was doing what he was doing in the moment in front of her. And at her celebration of life, David Fairweather did an amazing job. And he talked about this time of doing a case, and he was going to supervision with Sue, and he was saying to Sue something like, and I'm probably paraphrasing, hope I get it right, that he couldn't understand why the client wasn't responding to his brilliance. Something like that. If I interpreted that more funny, David, I'm sorry. And Sue's response was so profound that in the moments when we find ourselves frustrated with our clients, empathize. Sue was not getting down on David for the ability for even being frustrated. But I love that her go-to response in that moment was, in the moment of your frustration, empathize. And And that's huge. I know on this podcast we get very technical, and and the reason why Ryan and I get so, I would say, focused and detailed and technical on this podcast is because we're just trying to come alongside you and distill a process of some things that we've learned, we've tried to help make the process somewhat more clear. But I want to make sure that you hear it from me is that Ryan and I are never trying to replace the power of attunement and the power of being able to empathize with another person in their suffering. And that's something that's so huge. And, you know, I get to work with another colleague of mine, Chad Imhoff, and we do Self of the Therapist. So even hearing Sue say that ability that in moments of frustration, or I would even say in moments when you feel lost in your client's story, in moments when you feel distance from what your client is going through, I want to encourage you. Empathize, empathize, empathize. Okay. Sounds great. It's kind of general in a way. So what does that mean to empathize, empathize, empathize? And it kind of comes from an episode that Sue did on this podcast, I think, first and foremost. When Ryan and I asked Sue, in moments when clients are just really being reactive in session, kind of what is Sue's go-to in her mind? And the first thing she said was ground herself. Is for therapists, we should ground ourselves. Makes sense. And we've talked about on the podcast. But where I want to push it forward a little bit more, it's not only just grounding yourself, but how do you find empathy in the core of you for your client? That's what I want to talk about and try and expound on in this podcast. How do you slow down in the moments of reactivity or frustration in you? Maybe the frustration could be frustrated because they just keep blocking. You know, you see that there's an affective experience, but they just really won't let you in. Maybe you keep trying to get a clear trigger or cue and they just don't give it to you. Or maybe you keep trying to get them to go to some form of view of self or to talk about themselves, but they keep going over the view of other. In those moments, it could bring up frustration. And maybe, okay, let me go and tell on myself. I'm telling on me. I just told you all. I think without even thinking about it, I just went down the list of all the things. I shouldn't say everything. The things that tend to cause frustration in me. Those are the lists. Those are some of the things that tend to bring up frustration in me. And you know, I'm telling you about what Sue did, but I had to spend some time thinking about that after I listened to her celebration of life and just kind of contemplating it throughout the summit. And then afterwards, there was a trainer's retreat. And I think I found that there's some truth to that. I think on the moments when I'm doing well in my office, it's in those moments of frustration. I take time to understand the experience and think about and look at the situation from my client's experience. Of course, I can't do that perfectly for so many reasons. But that's the moments when I do my best, is when I'm able to find that and allow it to come alive cognitively in my brain, that there's a coherent kind of maybe narrative or story, the cycle. But not only the cycle, but then within the cycle, I'm able to find what is it like for them to want and hope for so much. But even in that hope, they can never find that breakthrough. The cycle takes over. It takes their best efforts and flips it upside down on its head. How frustrating that is. And then if I'm, you know, for me, it's sometimes maybe I could have some of that, but I wouldn't make it explicit. So that's another point. So one is ground yourself, whatever it does to come back into your body. 2, make sure you understand the basic moves of their cycle. 3, find what it must be like. Take time to look at what it must be like inside for them inside that cycle, the experience. Even if they can't let you in, let your body find it. And then now, make it explicit to them. When you find the empathy and it breaks you, make it explicit to them. Say it out loud. And not just in a like, oh, I found the answer, like it's like an open book test and you read the answer from the book. But read it as it's like an open heart in a way. Maybe I'm being a little bit corny there, but an open heart way, in that I think I've got it. It's in my heart. So can I open up and show you not only what I think I see, but can I show you what I felt as I walked around in your world? And that sense of empathizing with them. And then this is where George's definitely been a huge influence. and just validating their lived experience. Not that this is like some kind of like, automatic thing that always, but that ability to empathize shifts me out of my frustration towards my client. Maybe where now not only are they blocked, but I'm blocked, where I'm starting to come after them kind of in like either judge them or become like an anxious pursuer towards them or blaming them. It shifts me into a place of really like, let me come alongside you. Wow, this is so hard. Wow, this is so difficult. And so, with everything that we teach on this podcast, and we get the ability to come alongside the team on success and vulnerability, I think this is important, to emphasize the power of being able to empathize with someone else and their lived experience, even when it's frustrating you. And I want to make sure you get that point. As me and Ryan were talking, Ryan got to spend some more time with Sue, being on the board and just, being a trainer for a little while. And I appreciate that he said to me, it's not that Sue never got frustrated, but somehow in the midst of her frustration, she was able to still work within herself to find the ability to empathize with another person. And where I think Sue did so well with EFT, not just empathize with their vulnerable emotion or their primary emotion. Sue could find a way to empathize with people in their secondary emotion. And then that ability to empathize with someone in their secondary emotion is what I think helps give them a sense of safety, a sense of being seen, heard, and felt that allows their body, that whispers to the amygdala to allow them the ability to go into primary or more vulnerable emotional experience. So, so I just want to encourage you, even as you kind of listen to this podcast, and I know that many of you, I think the number one answer I heard at the summit was, I listen to you as I walk. That's the number one answer. If we were on a game show and they were asked, if we asked the top 100 listeners of the Left podcast, how do they listen to the podcast? The number one answer would be as they walk on a treadmill, as they walk in their neighborhood, as they walk into their offices. It's as you walk, which is, I think, is a fitting image for what we want this podcast to be. We want this podcast to be something that joins you as you walk alongside your clients. So, going back to this though, it's the importance of being able to, one, ground yourself, see their world, see the cycle, see and feel their experience inside of the cycle, make it explicit to them to the point where it resonates in you, and then it resonates within them. It's like now your empathy has brought a sense of safety and feltness into the room that maybe their limbic system didn't have the permission to be able to do on its own. And your ability to empathize can help create that safe space for them to take more risk. So yeah, that's the encouragement. It can seem so small, but it's so necessary. And even it just happened for me in a very real and practical way just yesterday. Had a couple just completely stuck in reactivity, going after each other, assuming the worst of each other, making all these negative interpretations, but just slowing them down, taking control back of the session and going on one side at a time and letting them know I can see their suffering. I can see what's happening. I can see their good reasons. I can also see what they're trying to do and how frustrating it can be. And then really empathizing. And then after they slowed down, saying, but I need to slow this process down. I can see that you all are trying to fight for something good. And I can't even disagree with what either you are doing or what you're feeling or how you're making sense of this. The problem is that the negative cycle takes over. And even though I can see the good, the negative cycle doesn't let you see the good. The negative cycle doesn't let you see what your partner is experiencing. The negative cycle doesn't allow you to kind of really be open. So I have to slow this down. I have to take this back over. Because if not, we're going to do the same thing. And both of the good things that you are fighting for are just going to be lost. But I'll tell you, that was a hard one for me because before, if I'm being honest, I wouldn't have empathized. I would have been irritated by their actions. I would have kind of, I don't know. I wouldn't say I would have shamed them, but it would have been different. I wouldn't have been able to convey and I think the key part was being able to explicitly convey my sense of empathy for them. So this podcast doesn't give you a lot of technical, nuanced skill. I hope it serves as a reminder of the power of your empathy with your clients. And then, of course, once you do, Ryan and I, if I'm going to put it back to something we've done before, if that helps them shift off of a path, empathy maybe shifts them out of path 1 into path 2, but you still got to go finish the mission and be able to work with the vulnerability that comes up. So that was one of my nuggets from Summit and Retreat. Definitely, we're going to get back eventually. Ryan might be out for a couple weeks. You'll probably have me in the studio again by myself. Definitely would love to hear episodes you want to talk about. We'll try and get Nicola back in. We've got some other, we got to talk to the trainers and hearing some of their specialties. We hope to get some more interviews in. But once again, the main thing I want to say before I leave this podcast is thank you. Thank you to all of you who allow us to, and the part that hit me was all around the world. And that's truly an honor and a privilege that we definitely feel and appreciate and we honor and we take seriously. So thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. We hope this experience helps you push the leading edge in your work to help people connect with themselves and with each other. Please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a 5-star review. You can contact us at pushtheleadingedge@gmail.com, and you can follow us on our Facebook page at Push the Leading Edge. You can follow Ryan on Facebook at Ryan Rana Professional Training and on his website, ryanranatraining.com. You can follow James on Facebook and Instagram at DocHawkLPC. You can also check out his website, DocHawkLPC.com.